A couple of years ago, I started teaching at a university, and I had my first day at school as a teacher, which was a hell of a lot scarier than my first day at school as a student. And I was scared because I was going to get up there in front of this group of, college students, and they're really smart these days. And I knew that some of them were going to be smarter than me, and they were going to see that I was a fraud and a phony and an imposter, and I had no business teaching a class of programmers what to do. And I was there with one of my associates, this guy who's on an Agile team that I work with, and he said, "How do you feel?" And I said, "I'm terrified because they're going to see right through me. They're going to know that I don't have what it takes." And he said to me, "You know, I felt the same way my first day doing this. Don't worry. If you get stuck, I'll help you out." And when I get into the presentation I'm going to show you, that's the heart of what it means to be on a good Agile team. To be able to understand and accept that you don't know everything and you don't have all the answers, and to have teammates that you trust will get you through it. Here's a quick video of the last Agile project that we completed as a virtual reality game.
It was oh so simple. We offered help to the humans, and they gladly took it. Little did they know the consequences for their trust. We had a goal, and we would stop at nothing. But something went wrong. Very wrong. Our creation didn't obey us. It became our worst nightmare.
In a traditional software cycle, you have what's known as your Gantt chart. And actually, the way that I learned how to make games, the first game that I worked on was a non-agile project, was that you have to first get this list of requirements, you make a big game design document, you make the immaculate plan of everything that you're going to do. And then you've got a project manager who knows everything, who has all of the answers, and who's going to lead everyone and explain to everyone exactly what they need to do. You need to figure out what you're going to do, make a detailed plan, and then after that, you do it. And when you're done doing it, you test it and you fix the bugs, and this is how you get everything done with traditional waterfall software development, they call it. And they call it a waterfall because, as you can see, you kind of move from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3. So if you apply this to a cycle of developing a game, maybe you've got a 24-month budget or an 18-month budget, and you say, okay, so for the first 3 months, we're going to figure out our requirements. For the next 3 months, we'll do our design. Then we'll go ahead and implement everything. We'll do our verification. And then after we put it out, we're going to fix the bugs. And that's kind of how you carve your cycle out. Just a question for the audience. If I do things this way and this is my plan, who thinks that I'm going to finish on time? I think, and everyone on my team understands, that if we do it this way, the game that we're going to make is going to absolutely and completely suck. And we're probably going to be late. Agile is not the answer for every type of project. For some things, Agile would be the wrong thing. There's a diagram which is known as the Stacy matrix, and it basically explains the projects that should have Agile and the projects should not have Agile. So if you look at the vertical column of the Stacy matrix, you have as far as the team and their understanding of what you're going to deliver. If you're really close to certainty, you're at the bottom. And if you're completely far from certainty, like you guys just don't know what the project is going to be, then you're towards the top of the matrix. And then the other portion of the Stacy matrix is how you're going to deliver what you're going to do. So if you've made 16 games like this before, this is your 13th match 3 game, you're using an engine framework you're very comfortable with, then you're going to be close to certainty. But if you've never done augmented reality before, you're doing it for HoloLens, you've never worked with this and it's a new game engine, you have absolutely no clue, you're far from certainty. So when you look at the Stacy matrix, you kind of position yourself from where you are on those two things. If you know what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, no need to do Agile. Just make a plan, follow the other way. But if you're somewhere in the middle, which is where a lot of game projects fall, it's a perfect target for Agile. And if you have no idea what you're going to do and no idea how you're going to do it, make a different plan. That's where you're just in the realm of chaos, and Agile is not going to help you at all. So the hardest thing about getting Agile to work in an organization is to actually get the leader to surrender his power. Because in a typical organization, you've got your project manager, and he's just absolutely in control of everything. And he tells everyone what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And on an Agile team, you've got a self-organizing team where the people who are on the team come together and organize, and it's not under the lead. And the role of the leader on an Agile team is that basically he's a facilitator. He's helping the team find their own way. So the way that you fix this problem, if you've got an Agile team, is you go no manager. The team will self-organize and decide what it is that they could actually accomplish. The other biggest risk that you have on an Agile team, on any team rather, is that the team doesn't understand the manager. The manager comes in, he says, I want this, 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 and this, and actually everyone's afraid to disagree with them, so they're all like, yes, 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 and he's like, okay, everyone understand what I'm going to do? Anybody have any question? Everybody's like, nope, we understand, yes, yes, yes. But really, the reality is, one guy is thinking, it's going to look like a box. The other guy's thinking it's going to look like a triangle. The other guy, it's in a circle. And we say we're all in agreement then, but the fact is that we're not. So when you start to discuss it and you force, one of the tenets of Agile is to force discussion among the team at all times, just to make sure that everyone understands and sees things in agreement. And when you start discussing it, you realize, wait a second, this is not like what we were discussing at all. So you kind of come up with a compromise that the whole team understands and that the whole team can do. So when you look at a traditional org chart, if you look at just how the roles work and how everything's worked, what is this diagram really saying? And what it's saying when you've got a manager who's in charge of everything is that I don't trust you. I don't trust your ability, so I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. And if you look at when you've got a real Agile structure, which is a team where it's balanced and self-organized, the magic happens because what this structure is saying is, I believe in you, I respect you, and I trust that you will deliver. So if you've got this structure, then what do you need a manager for at all? What does the management do in an Agile team? So the Scrum Master is responsible for a few things. His job is to make sure that nobody is blocked, because a lot of time, no matter what the organization is, no matter what it is, there's always going to be times where you've got dependent events and one person blocks the other, and a payment needs to be made, someone needs to learn something, a computer needs to be ordered, just something needs to happen to unblock one person from doing the next thing. So his first role is to just make sure no one's blocked. The other thing is to facilitate Scrum events, to make sure all the meetings are held, to make sure they're held as good as possible, and also to facilitate communication among the team, just to get everybody talking, to get everything out, no matter what it is. The other role that's on an Agile team is the product owner. So the product owner's role is very specific. He's supposed to set the outline of what the project is going to be. He's supposed to analyze the feedback from people who have tested the product, from the customers, from the clients, to prioritize what things are supposed to be done. And he has the ability to cut scope. So an example, okay, it's going to be in a motion-controlled VR game. The combat system will be as fun as we could make it, and there'll be sci-fi babes. This is just like a general outline. The next one is get the feedback from when there's testing, prioritize what we're going to do first, and when the project seems like it's going behind schedule, to go ahead and cut scope. That's the role of the product owner. The team then self-organizes to deliver user stories. And a perfect story is written as a role, I would like something, so that's something. As a player, I would like a stupid-looking, annoying enemy that laughs at me, laughs at my shots when I miss them, so that I will want to kill him more. A good story doesn't need to explain what needs to be done. It doesn't need to say who should do it, but it encourages the team to discuss it and to self-organize to find a solution. Provides just enough so the team can get together and solve the problem. That's the team structure. Now let's talk about the delivery. So the second biggest risk in a project is, what if the pieces don't fit? And it just seems like the most logical way to do anything, that if you're going to make a car, first let's go ahead and make the wheels. After the wheels are done, we'll make the chassis. When the chassis is done, we'll make the body, we'll put the engine in, we'll put all these pieces together and it'll fit. Agile says, throw all that stuff out the window. What do you really want to do? You want to get from point A to point B. What can we give you immediately so you can get from point A to point B? So you could learn the terrain, so you could figure out what it is that you really need, because maybe your idea of what you wanted is not what the market is really ultimately demanding. So instead of making the wheels and the chassis and the whatever, give the guy a skateboard. I know he wants a Ferrari, but make a skateboard and try to get across. Evolve that skateboard into a scooter, then to a bicycle, then to a motorcycle, and ultimately you can figure out what it is that is really the product market fit. In an agile project schedule, instead of prioritizing this gigantic plan and fitting all the requirements, the idea is working software, early delivery, rapid iterations, and continuous improvement. So on a typical waterfall cycle, you've got this phase A, phase B, phase C, to get from these things slowly, and that's the whole life cycle of the project. So how Agile is different is that you've got your complete project in just a fraction of the time, and then you go from the top and do it again and again and again. At the end of each sprint, you have to deliver working software. The team commits to what they can do, not the team leader. Sprints have to be time-boxed and they have to be protected. Management cannot add things midway. I've been guilty of doing this before, but it's definitely not the right way to do Agile. The other idea behind Agile, to stress this a little bit further, is that at the end of each iteration, you want to have a potentially releasable product. Potentially being the operative word, because when when the guy wants a skateboard and you want to deliver this, grand gigantic game, you don't want to deliver the, this horrible thing, but you've got something that you potentially could release at the end of each iteration. So if you're not thinking this way and you're thinking traditional waterfall, basically as each day goes by, you have more and more risk. And as the product goes on, the idea is that just at the end, you're going to deliver this amazing thing of value and everything's going to be perfect and you'll have the perfect product market fit. But with Agile, the idea is, hey, let's have something that we could possibly release. We really hate this, but and we'll make another one and another one. And as time goes by, actually your risk goes down, because first you're able to ship something, but you're not going to ship it. But as you go further and further down the schedule and you have more potentially releasable products, eventually you have something you say, actually we could just cut it right here and release it and move on to the next project, or we could keep going further. Whereas with waterfall, you're never in that position. You're always at 100% risk. I've just spent the last 2 years on this product. I've got absolutely nothing. I can't ship anything. I can't show anything. And Agile encourages to stay away from that. I believe that in the IT business, and it happens in every sector of IT, and I've worked in a few different ones, that there's very few people in the IT industry that can say what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, and deliver on it. And I think a lot of people in the IT business are just completely full of it, and their word means nothing. Like you say, I want to do this and this, how long is it going to take? And they say they can't give you an answer that means, they'll say something which they believe that is true, but they can't deliver on that. And I believe that no matter what you do in this business, if you can consistently make a promise and deliver on it, you will win the respect of everyone within your organization. If you can just say, I'm going to do this week, and you deliver it, right? And if you consistently do this over time, whatever company you are in, you will rise to the top of, because everyone else is going to be making empty promises that they can't deliver on. So it's very important just to be able to do this. And if you've got your own studio, you've got your own project, then you should be doing this with the public and with your customers, as opposed to with your teammates, to be able to consistently say we're going to do this and actually deliver on it. You'll win the respect of your players as well. This is still not enough to win. This will help you get a little further, but it's still not enough. There was a farmer in Italy around 150 years ago named Vilfredo Pareto. And he had noticed that in his field of peas, that 80% of the pea pods were producing, 20% of the pea pods were producing 80% of the peas. And he came up with this idea, which later became known as the Pareto principle, that says 20% of the X produces 80% of the output. And this principle was applied to sales organizations, and they found that it worked exactly like that. If you look at this distribution of revenue in the gaming industry, you'll find that 20% of the game studios make 80% of the money. But this actually goes slightly further, because it's nested. Within that, let's say, for example, on Steam, there's 1,000 games released per month. 20% of those games are going to make 80% of the money. But if you look at those 200 games, which are making 80% of the money, you will find that 20% of them, which comes out to 40 games, are making 80% of that money. And then you'll also find, if you go another level deeper, that 20% of them are making 80% of the money. What this boils down to is the top 1% of the games are making 50% of the money. Everybody else fails. You have to get to the top 1%, or you have no business. You're not going to stay in this business for long. It's like top 1% or bust. It looks like things might be equally distributed, but that's the furthest thing from the truth. Vilfredo Pareto's distribution of peas is exactly the distribution of revenue in the gaming industry today. The other principle that helps is when you can combine both Agile with Lean. So Agile is about how to deliver things on a rapid schedule. Lean is about how to deliver what the market wants. And Lean comes from Toyota Manufacturing, the car company. In the I'm not sure when they came up with that. I think it's the 50s or 60s. They came up with the idea of lean manufacturing, which was based on the principle of you're driving your car and you break the headlight. You go to the dealer and you don't want to wait 3 weeks for him to order some part from the factory and deliver it to you. So the dealer has a bunch of headlights which he has stocked and ready to go. And this is really convenient for the customer, because the customer comes in, the dealer gives him the headlight, and he drives away that day. The problem is, it was really obvious to Toyota when they had dealers with these gigantic piles of boxes of headlights that nobody wanted. that nobody needed. They spent all this time building this stuff that no one needed or wanted. So their solution was what is known as lean manufacturing, which can be applied to technology. And the solution of lean manufacturing was simple. They said, okay, let's actually make our factory. We've got a 5,000 square meter facility. And instead of making the big batch, like we're going to produce 64,000 headlights, no, let's have our whole 5,000 square foot facility produce one headlight. Let's stock each dealer with one extra copy, and if the dealer uses it, we'll make one more and we'll give it to them. It'll be lean, but this will be exactly what the market needs and be able to hit demand without having waste. They went to smaller batches. So what does waste look like in a game studio? Well, in a game studio, you're not going to see these big, gigantic piles of boxes of headlights. As a matter of fact, it can be a really clean place with no clutter and no everything, but that doesn't mean there wasn't a huge amount of waste. Waste is the features that you made which the market never really wanted. And if you combine Agile with Lean, you can start to eliminate the risks of making things that people don't want. So going back to the Lean and the Agile schedule. So you've got your product broken into these different agile cycles where you're going to deliver a potentially releasable product at these different breakpoints in your time budget, as opposed to deliver some great thing at the end. You're going to bring this to the market. And the word that they like to use is an MVP, your minimum viable product. You make the minimum viable product to bring to the market and test to the market and confirm that this is what the market actually wanted. And this is how you incorporate Lean with the Agile schedule. How big of a scope? I recommend one core feature. It's quite a challenge just to have one core feature. And a lot of times when you start talking, there's all these things you want to put in, but one feature you know you can implement, you know you can make it of quality, and it's actually hard enough just to get one thing to work right. You're going to need some complementary features, but one core feature is what we're doing for our next project. The other thing is that most things that we did and that we tried, they just completely sucked and they weren't fun at all when we play tested them. The only way that we've ever made anything good was to actually do it, test it, do it again, fix it, test it, do it again. And maybe after the 10th time, we had something good that we're saying, hey, wait a second, this is like now a quality product. So one feature with 10 iterations is going to be much better than 3 features with 2 iterations or something along those lines. The project that we're working on right now is both fully lean and fully agile. We haven't finished yet, but my prediction is that we're going to deliver early. We're going to deliver above and beyond what the initial spec of the project was, and that it will be a very high quality product. So my closing statement about Agile is that the most important takeaway, and it goes back to the beginning of what I started with this presentation, is the processes are kind of important. You know, you follow Scrum and you follow this, and they're going to help you a lot. But the most important is to have a team where the team can really self-organize, where each member of the team accepts and understands that they don't have all the answers, but as a team, you're going to be stronger. And one of the hardest things to do is to actually let the management kind of step aside and let the team organize themselves. If you're on a company that's not doing Agile, it's going to be a real hard sell for the management to do that. But usually you can convince them if you just say, hey, why don't you give us just like a week or two to try and solve this on our own? Like give them a little taste of what an Agile thing could do versus a top-down approach. And I'm sure that you'll be able to impress them into adopting this methodology. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.